The UFC's featherweight division has always been one of, if not the most exciting and stacked divisions in UFC's history, with it also being one of, if not the hardest divisions to see movement in, tying with flyweight to have the least amount of champions since both of the division's inceptions. And that is because the champions that they have had in these divisions have been so damn dominant for such long periods of time. Except you, McNuggets, not you. And now it's been shaken up more than it's ever been, as we have Ilia Topuria, who is projected to be a long-serving featherweight champion, as well as Max Holloway leaving the division to move up to 155 pounds. And now we also have guys like Patricio, Pitbull, and Aaron Pico coming through for ranking positions and targeting to try and get those. So there's so many different matchups to make in this division, with some of these top guys finally leaving and a lot of new guys coming from different organizations to try and claim those ranking positions. And that's what we are here for today. I am playing matchmaker with the top of the featherweight division, giving every fighter in the rankings their next matchup, starting from the top with the featherweight GOAT, Alexander Volkanovski. So for Volkanovski's next matchup, we need to see him versus Movsar Evloev. I think this one, honestly, is pretty clear. I know there's been a lot of jumping around in terms of who actually deserves to fight for the title. Yair Rodriguez made a pretty decent case for himself against Patricio Pitbull. He looked very dominant in that fight, but people really, I honestly will say, I don't think they want to see that one again. Volkanovski was just so dominant in that fight, and he needs a fresh name. And ultimately, if you are Volkanovski, I think Evloev is the best fight to take, because stylistically, it's actually a bit of a better matchup for him. Because as we know, Evloev is a bit of a decision merchant in the UFC, obviously. That shows that he doesn't have that huge KO power threat, and he doesn't really have a strong submission threat overall that we have seen, especially against a high-level guy like Volkanovski. So the problem with Volkanovski is obviously his chin, and will that get tested against a guy like Evloev, who is not knocking people out? That is where it could be a good fight for Volk. But with Evloev at the same time, Evloev is really going to be able to test the strength of Volkanovski's wrestling, because you look at Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Evloev looked absolutely incredible with his wrestling pedigree. Definitely the best actual pure wrestler within this division right now. And Volkanovski, we saw how strong he looked against Islam Makhachev moving up in weight, and how good he fought against that top tier wrestling. So even though Volkanovski's getting older, he could definitely really give Evloev some trouble when it comes to that wrestling. And obviously Evloev has not faced someone as technical and as just smart with the fight IQ on the feet as Volkanovski. So that's where there's a lot of questions in this matchup. And ultimately, I am an Evloev fan, to be honest. I think that his performances have actually been very entertaining. I mean, he's fought Arnold Allen, he fought Aljamain Sterling, he fought Diego Lopes, and those guys brought it to him, but Evloev held his own completely in every single one of those fights. I mean, he gritted through Lopes, trying to snap his knee in half, and then he's obviously gone against Arnold Allen with blood running down everywhere. That was a great fight. And then he just out-wrestled and out-transitioned Aljo most of that fight too. So I think he definitely deserves the title fight, and it is the most clear picture here. And ultimately, for Volkanovski, I think this would be best for him to take this fight. He beats Evloev, takes that O away from him, beats one of these mythical Russian fighters, especially after losing to Islam. I think that is a perfect way to retire on top against an undefeated Dagestani fighter. That is what you want, and I believe that they should be fighting around UFC 321, which would probably be in early October, because Volk against Lopes, he got bunged up a bit. I mean, his hand looked like it was broken, definitely all the cuts and bruises over his face. And Evloev, he will wait a little bit longer if he's definitely going to be guaranteed a title fight. So yeah, that's the fight to make. Now, moving down the rankings, we have Diego Lopes as the highest ranked. Now, we need to see him versus Yair Rodriguez. This is just clear as day to make. I mean, we've got to get this beef settled. We saw what happened at UFC 314 with the press conference. It was literally all about these two. Like, even the autistic matchup of Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva did not eclipse what these guys were arguing about, which no one in the crowd could understand a single fucking thing they were saying. But regardless, these guys are both extremely fun strikers. I mean, we have got the Taekwondo of Yair Rodriguez. The guy has packed on a lot of muscle against Pitbull as well. He's looked better than he's ever looked. And Diego Lopes is coming off that loss to Volkanovski. And this is the most clear fight to make, especially if Evloev is going to be fighting for the title, because Lopez's best matchups by a country mile are either Yair or Evloev, and that just leaves Yair. And we've got a storyline here. Why not make this fight for Guadalajara at UFC 320 in mid-September for a co-main event? I think that would be a fantastic fight, and honestly, it's going to be extremely competitive. Obviously, we've got Lopes with the ground game advantage for sure, and then we've got Yair with the range. He's definitely got the advantage there, and both of them pretty tight when it comes to that clinch-based striking too. So, there's a lot of questions within that matchup, and I think over 5 rounds, I'd probably be more inclined to take Lopes, and over 3 rounds, probably more so Yair. So it's definitely a good matchup regardless, and let's make that for UFC 320. Now, moving down to the most innocent man in this division, Arnold Allen. I need to see Arnold Allen fight Gene Silva. You cannot tell me that this fight would not be absolutely insane. Absolutely crazy when it comes to the striking that these guys have. Arnold Allen is so aggressive on the feet, has good kickboxing. He's good at all ranges. He's good at that close clinch range, good at boxing, and good at kickboxing range. And Gene Silva, this guy has no identifiable weaknesses. This guy is a freak of nature. And this fight is completely possible because Allen, when it comes to a timeline sense, he's healed up his hand injury that he had against Giga Chikadze, and Gene Silva against Bryce Mitchell pretty much took no damage. I mean, he took a couple leg kicks here and there, but Gene Silva would literally fight the next day. He wouldn't care, and for him to break into the top 5, basically, I mean, why not fight Arnold Allen? Like, that's a fantastic fight to take. That going from 11th to 5th, that is what you want. So, honestly, definitely get this fight booked as soon as possible. I think maybe late June, possibly early July. Could possibly see it on the UFC 318 card, or possibly even International Fight Week, to be honest, depending on how hungry Gene Silva is, which is a no-brainer with that guy. Just a crazy, crazy freak of nature, which he has got a lot of hype around him. And Arnold Allen, I mean, this guy, everyone really likes him, but he needs a clear, good win to get into that title mix because he hasn't had a title fight. We need to see him in a title fight. He's been in the division for so long, and beating a guy like Gene Silva is realistically going to get you that shot. It's 100% going to, and I mean, it's just going to be nuts on the feet. On the ground, it's going to be very interesting as well. Arnold Allen's never been finished, ever. Very durable guy, super gritty, loves his tea and biscuits. The guy is awesome. I love him. I love Gene Silva. This would just be a fantastic matchup to see. Competitive in all areas of MMA, so definitely make this for around that late June to early July. Looking at International Fight Week or possibly UFC 318, or if we could, if there's some form of pullout or they just put this above, make this a fight night headliner. Now, moving down to Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega is definitely tricky because Brian has had thoughts of moving up to 155 pounds. He hasn't looked the greatest as of recently when it comes to featherweight, and he's getting slower as well. I mean, he's getting older too. So I think when you're Brian Ortega, there's a lot of killers behind you, and whoever is going to take that matchup, I mean, it needs to be somehow worth it for Ortega. And if he's going to be fighting down, why not fight down directly one ranking? Brian Ortega versus Lerone Murphy. This is the best case scenario for Brian Ortega in terms of affecting his ranking, going from 7th to 8th if he loses. And Lerone Murphy has literally called Brian Ortega out. And Lerone Murphy is a fantastic kickboxer, but there's a clash of styles here because Brian Ortega, he does have decent boxing. Like, it's honestly good. He's technical there. It's just his speed is not good. And that's where Lerone Murphy definitely has the advantage with the speed. But when it comes to the ground game, Brian Ortega is someone that Lerone Murphy simply has never faced when it comes to that ground game pedigree, and Brian Ortega could surprise and possibly take that O of Lerone if he has his way on the ground. But if Lerone is able to stay on the feet, I mean, he could definitely take Brian Ortega out, be the first one to do so. So there's a lot of questions in this matchup. Best case for Brian Ortega realistically, because I don't think he wants to be going against like an Aaron Pico or a Gene Silva, to be honest. Like, they're just not the greatest matchups for him, especially with the explosivity of their KO power, whereas Lerone Murphy is more volume based. I think this is a good option for him to take, and if he beats Lerone Murphy an undefeated streak, I mean, that's putting him back right in the mix as well. And if Lerone Murphy passes Brian Ortega with the momentum that he's got anyway, I mean, and he keeps it on the feet, it's quite an easy win for him regardless. So, I mean, he could just break through and go through for a title eliminator after that. So I think there's pros for both of them in this matchup. Now, moving down to Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling hasn't had like the fairy tale featherweight, you know, debut. Obviously, he did beat Calvin Kattar, beat the brakes off him realistically with that wrestling, but then Evloev did shut him down. Now, Aljo, when we look at him, I think in terms of having a redeeming factor, he needs to beat someone lower than him, but then needs to beat someone that has a very tricky style. And with Aljo being in the top 10, I believe that he should be fighting Youseff Zalal. Youseff Zalal has a very interesting kind of style to combat with Aljo. They're both very kind of similar, very weird to strike on the feet. They're just very unorthodox in terms of the way they just throw strikes, kind of lunging weird ones. But then as well on the ground, Zalal's never been finished, and he's very good with his grappling. But is it better than Aljo's? And Aljo is someone that is going to test that grappling to the extreme. And if Aljo is able to actually change up his game and pressure forward, then he could definitely find some success against Zalal and maintain that single-digit ranking. But Zalal, the guy's on a 4-fight win streak, and he's got 3 submissions within that coming back into the UFC. So he definitely deserves a top 10 shot. And that's where I think it's just a great mirror match when it comes to the grappling. I think it's just going to be an awesome fight. And if it's anything to go by with Aljo fighting Evloev, that was one of my favorite fights, literally, of the year. I honestly would love to see this matchup when it comes to that grappling. I just think there's a no-brainer there, especially for Aljo having to test himself to get back into the mix, and Zalal, rightfully so, getting that opportunity in the top 10. Now, moving on from Aljamain Sterling, complete contrast in style, we've got the muscle nugget, Josh Emmett. And I think Josh Emmett should be fighting Giga Chikadze next. Now, Josh Emmett, obviously, he did fight Lerone Murphy, did get beaten pretty convincingly, to be honest. I mean, his shots were pretty telegraphed. He just didn't look the greatest. Granted, Lerone was on the back foot most of the time, but that is Lerone's game. He's very good at point fighting, and it's just a bad fight for Emmett. But if Emmett is going against Giga Chikadze, we've seen Giga Chikadze on the back foot against Calvin Kattar. If Giga is on the back foot, he's getting chinned. Emmett is going to rip his head off. That's where Giga needs to be on the front foot, and Emmett is always on the front foot. So we are going to have an absolute banger of a fight here for as long as it would probably last. But that being said, though, it's an unstoppable force in Josh Emmett versus an immovable object in Giga Chikadze. Giga obviously got dominated by Calvin Kattar, but the durability is absolutely no joke. I mean, it's honestly a great question to have. You always want these unstoppable force versus immovable object fights. It's a great opportunity for one of them to make a statement, honestly, because if Giga wins this, he beats Josh Emmett and possibly actually chins him, that's going to push him so much further forward, and he needs it because he is getting older, and so is Josh Emmett. This fight is crucial for these guys as it's just a battle against the clock for their ages. Giga Chikadze, he is fighting literally this coming weekend against David Onama. He's giving David Onama that opportunity, and I believe Giga Chikadze can get it done against Onama. He's just got to be careful in the early rounds, but he's got the skill there. The kickboxing pedigree is no joke. If he can redeem himself against a forward pressure fighter from that Kattar fight against someone that's even more dangerous in Josh Emmett, I think that that is a fantastic reason for him to get into a single-digit ranking position. Now, moving on to the featherweight division's beloved gatekeeper, we've got Dan Ige next up, and Dan Ige should be versing and introducing Aaron Pico into the UFC's featherweight division. And that's because I don't believe Pico should be fighting in the top 10. He should be fighting in the top 15 of the division for his debut, which is where Ige is. And as a gatekeeper, going 6-1 against guys outside the rankings and 0-6 in the rankings, Ige is that gatekeeper. And realistically, this is a great fight for Pico to go into, realistically, because Ige has threats pretty much everywhere. He's super durable as well, and we haven't seen Ige ever be finished. And Pico is a guy that has very offensive threats. He's got great wrestling, and Ige is no slouch when it comes to wrestling himself. And also Pico has like one-hit KO power, and Ige has never been chinned. So there's the questions there. And I do think when it comes to the track record of these lower divisions signing these new fighters like Kaya Sakura and Patricio Pitbull, that's anything to go by. Give Aaron Pico a top 15, not a top 10, if we want any real longevity within this guy. And that's where I think Ige is just the fight to make, because I would have chosen Giga Chikadze, as I did say in his fighter spotlight versus the top 15 featherweight video, but the timelines won't match up, as I didn't realize there, because Giga will have to rest after fighting David Onama this coming weekend. If he goes out and gets it done unscathed, I definitely think the Giga Chikadze fight is there on a silver platter for Pico. And I don't think there's a wrong answer between Ige or Giga Chikadze for Pico, to be honest. I think Giga Chikadze is the easier matchup for him, but there's a lot more questions within the Dan Ige fight. They're both interested. I think this fight should honestly be made very soon. I mean, Ige is coming off the Sean Woodson win. He did take a little bit of damage, but Ige came into a fight on like 4 hours notice against Diego Lopes at a 165-pound catch weight. Like, I think he's fine if he's going to fight in a couple months, realistically. The guy is just game. He is a stud. And Pico, if he can knock out Dan Ige, he is making a statement. So I'm very interested to see that happen. I'd like to see that happen around May, and maybe end of May, or possibly in June. And on to our last ranking position, we have good old Calvin Kattar. And Calvin Kattar is going to be fighting outside the rankings, and I believe he should be fighting Steve Garcia. Kind of like an unstoppable force versus immovable object matchup. Garcia has only been finished once in his career by KO TKO, but aside from that, I mean, Calvin Kattar, he's never been finished, and Garcia is finishing absolutely fucking everyone that he is fighting. And this is a reasonable matchup because Calvin Kattar did not look hungry against Youseff Zalal. So I do think that they need to give someone an opportunity outside the rankings because of that, realistically, and obviously the losing skid he's on. Honestly, it's just similar to a fight like Emmett. Having Emmett as an unstoppable force against Giga Chikadze as a movable object, you gotta love those fights. And I think that this is, like, honestly, borderline an even better one, to be honest, because Garcia, this guy is just a freak of nature. I mean, he's on like a 5-fight KO streak at the moment at featherweight, and he is putting that win streak on the line, and Kattar is going to be putting his chin on the line and his ranking on the line. So it's definitely going to be an amazing fight, especially with how much momentum Garcia has got. And if anyone, aside from possibly Nate Wood, who deserves a position within the rankings, it's definitely Steve Garcia. I mean, Nate Wood looks great, but he hasn't finished anyone, and Garcia is doing the exact opposite. He is murdering everyone at featherweight. So it's the question there, can he take out Kattar, or has Kattar still got it? So I want to see this matchup around late June, possibly early July. Kattar's just had a recent fight against Zalal, and Steve Garcia is fresh, so let's make it happen. Now, we're not just stopping at the rankings. I do want to give a couple of bonus matchups, and for one of them, you guys are probably wondering, why is Patricio Pitbull not in this video? Why is he not getting matched up with someone in the top 15? Now, I believe that he definitely can be matched up with someone in the top 15, but he just did not look particularly impressive at all against Yair Rodriguez. And if there's any way that you have an MMA legend like Pitbull moving into the rankings with a statement as an MMA legend that he is, it is to beat an MMA legend. And to do that, let's see him versus Dooho Choi, the Korean Superboy. I mean, you can't tell me that this wouldn't be an awesome high-paced action fight on the feet. Both of them are realistically always stand on that linear angle, on that center line, and just trade. They both have fast striking, good counter striking. Both of them have power. I mean, Choi, he looked fantastic against Nate Landwehr, absolutely dominated him. So he's definitely deserving some form of position that's going to break him into the top 15. And he's a fan favorite as well. He was an absolute stud back before he had to do his service. And I am so keen to see him again. And I've loved his resurgence in the UFC, and seeing him against Pitbull, it's just an amazing MMA legend fight. But not only that, I mean, stylistically, it is fantastic because the striking they have on the feet, someone could definitely go out in the first round. But then Choi has improved his wrestling dramatically as he did against Nate Landwehr. And then we have Patricio Pitbull, who has a chance to unleash the grappling if it gets to the ground. So I think that this is a no-brainer. Whoever wins this fight gets the ranking opportunity. Now, lastly, as the bonus matchup, we do have to end on the flat earth phenomenon that is Bryce Mitchell. And with the dangers that he was presented with on the feet against Josh Emmett, let's see him given the opposite approach, to have him potentially redeem himself off of that Silva submission loss. And to have that, he needs to fight Pat Sabatini next time. I can definitely see that matchup going pretty much any way. I mean, he has the potential to outstrike Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini is getting this because he destroyed Joe Anderson Brito. That absolutely made my jaw drop to the floor. And Joe Anderson Brito, if he beat Sabatini, he was pretty much, I think, next up for a shot at the top 15, because he was just looking fantastic. I mean, he did lose to William Gomez, but I thought that was a bit of bullshit anyway. He should have won that fight regardless, but he got completely exposed, and Pat Sabatini was the one to do it. His wrestling, his submission art is just fantastic. He's literally a featherweight Grant Dawson. I mean, he looks really, really good. And if he can beat Bryce Mitchell, especially submit him and completely more so control him like he did against Joe Anderson Brito, then, oh, Pat Sabatini, he's deserving a top 15 shot. And I think that this is an opportunity for him to really just showcase his striking. But then on the other side, it's the same for Bryce Mitchell, because Pat Sabatini doesn't have that greater striking himself. So I do believe that we're going to see an awesome matchup with the wrestling, just see who can actually out-grapple who. And we could possibly get a bit of a striking showcase there, and puts one of them straight on track to getting into that top 15, which Bryce Mitchell, I mean, with the popularity he has, if he gets this done by a statement, he's probably getting a top 15 shot anyway. And Pat Sabatini, if he's really just busting through Joe Anderson Brito and then destroying Bryce Mitchell, you can't really doubt him. So I think I want to see this more so probably around August. I think that this would be a good fight around August. Sabatini's just fought, Bryce Mitchell's just fought, and then with the Pitbull versus Choi fight as well, I'd probably say with that, probably a bit earlier, I reckon around mid-July. I think that that would be a good time to have that matchup, as Pitbull is obviously only just fought. So as we can see, the featherweight division is absolutely bloody stacked. We've got matchups that can be made pretty much anywhere at the moment, and we've got some ones that make a lot of sense, like Volkanovski and Evloev, and then we've got Lopes and Yair. But then we've got other matchups that can be made, can be projected anywhere. We've got Aaron Pico, who could be fighting anyone within the top 5 to the top 15. And then we've also got matchups outside the rankings that are fantastic. Well, I mean, we've got Garcia coming in, who's on that 5-fight KO streak. And then we've got Pitbull versus Dooho Choi. I really hope that one happens, because that is just an awesome kind of legacy fight regardless. And yeah, there's just so many good matchups that we could be seeing here, and I am so keen to see what the matchmakers are going to do. And please watch this video, because we need these matchups. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this matchups to make video, and please feel free to comment down below the matchups that you want to see in the featherweight division. I'd be really interested to hear your guys' takes, and I want to see if you guys definitely cooked with the matchups that you think either you agree or you think that might be better suited than the ones that I made here. I'm definitely open to hear them, as well as if you want to stay on the featherweight train, definitely check out my fighter spotlight videos on Aaron Pico that I released earlier this week. We've got the normal fighter spotlight video, which is literally talking about him in totality, with his striking, his grappling, his wrestling, all the key points, his career statistics, everything there, as well as the other video on the other side of my head, which is him versus the top 15 featherweights and how he goes going through the rankings in a tier list video. So with that, please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.